Hi. So today we're going to be talking about solving one and two-step inequalities. Okay. Let me see if I can move this little thing. Okay. So the difference between equations and inequalities. So we've been talking about equations, so this is kind of stuff that we already know. And then over here, it's going to be about inequalities and kind of what changes. So when we have equations, both sides are equal. Inequalities, both sides are not equal. For equations, you can flip the equation, it will be true. So for example, if you have x equals 2 or 2 equals x, these are both true statements. You cannot flip your equation without flipping your sign on an inequality. And the reason this is because x is less than 2 and 2 is less than x. They're both not true. These are not the same. So if we use x equals 1 as an example, 1 is less than 2, but 2 is not less than 1. So you must flip your sign so that your equations are the same. So if you do x is less than 2 and 2 is greater than x, now these are both true. So this is something that you have to remember with inequalities. The last thing that is different between equations and inequalities is multiplying or dividing by a negative. If you multiply or divide by a negative in an equation, there is no difference. It's not going to change your statement. It's still going to be true. But if you're multiplying or dividing by a negative in an inequality, if you multiply and divide by a negative in an inequality, you must flip your sign. If you don't flip your sign, it's not going to be a true statement. Okay. And we'll see these as we move on. We have a practice problem that's going to have that problem in there. So an equation uses a equal sign to show both sides are equal. And an inequality shows that both sides are not equal. And you might not be able to see that whole statement because my face might be in the way. I'm trying to move the camera. Okay. So we're going to write the symbol and sketch the number line for each of the following. So when we have greater than, this is the symbol that we use. X is greater than some number. And we're going to go ahead and have an open circle because we're not including the value. It's just strictly greater than. And we're going to shade everything greater than. If we have greater than or equal to, we're going to have this symbol. It's going to have a line underneath. The line underneath means equal to. We're going to have a closed circle because it's going to include that value. And we're going to shade everything greater than that number. For less than, we're going to have this symbol. See, there's no line underneath it. It's just strictly less than. So that means we're going to have an open circle because we're not going to include that value. And we're going to shade everything less than. And then we have less than or equal to, which is going to include the sign underneath. With that line, that means it's going to include the value. So we're going to have a closed circle. And with that closed circle, we're going to have everything shaded less than. And these are the shapes, the symbols that we're going to use and how you shade them and graph them. Okay, so our steps for solving inequalities. You're going to use the same don't call me after midnight steps as using in solving equations. When you multiply or divide by a negative number, the inequality sign is flipped. So watch for negative signs, because if you multiply or divide by a negative, you must flip your sign. And then choose a number in your solution set to check the answer. And I need to add a T there. So solve the inequalities and choose a number in your solution set to check and sketch a graph. So here's my inequality. We have x minus 5 is greater than 32. So like always, we're going to use do not call me after midnight. We're looking for parentheses, which I don't see any. So then we're going to look for like terms. So I have x minus 5. That's a variable and that's a constant, so there's nothing to combine. And we have 32, so there's only one term, so there's nothing to combine. So we don't combine like terms. Then we look to see if we need to move any variables. Do we have variables on both sides? No, we do not, so we're not going to move variables. And then we need to add or subtract. So we look to see if we have a constant where our variable is. So here's my variable, and I have a constant. I have -5. So we need to move that. Just like before, to move that, we need to go ahead and add 5 to both sides because we need to cancel out that -5. The -5 and the +5 cancel. You're left with x on this side, and 32 plus 35 is 37. So we're going to put a check by add or subtract. And then this is the answer that we got because we don't have any coefficients to multiply or divide. So you have x is greater than 37. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to check our answer real quick. And so to check it, we're going to pick a number that's greater than 37 because that's what we're saying. X is greater than 37. So we're checking. So I'm going to pick 40. So let x equal 40. So in here, I'm going to put 40 wherever I see an x. So I have 40 minus 5 is greater than 32. So I subtract 5 from 40 and I have 35, and 35 is greater than 32. So our answer is correct. So now we're going to go ahead and graph it. So there's 3 steps to graphing. First, we're going to have our number line, right? And then we're going to have our value that we're talking about. So our value is at 37. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to look at our sign. We have strictly greater than, so we're going to have an open circle. And then we see that x is greater than, so we're going to do everything greater than. So you find your number, you determine if you have an open or a closed circle, so you put your circle and then you shade. So now we're going to do another example. Now remember, if you need to pause, if you need to rewatch, this is a pre-recorded video, so you're able to go ahead and go back and watch it if you need to. So I forgot to go ahead and do that, so give me 1 second. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna use the do not call me after midnight steps. We have negative 13x is less than or equal to 117. So I'm looking for parentheses, and I don't have parentheses on either side. So I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna say I do not distribute. And then I'm looking for like terms. So we're checking this side of the inequality, and I have a 1 term, negative 13x. Well, if you already have 1 term, we have nothing to combine it with. On the other side, we have 117. Once again, we only have 1 term, so we have nothing to combine it with. So we do not combine like terms. So then we talk about moving variables. So we look to see if we have variables on both sides. Well, I don't. I only have a variable on this side, so we're not doing that part either. Then we need to add or subtract. Do I have any numbers that I need to add or subtract from my variable? No, I only have 1 term, so I don't have a constant over there. So I don't have that either. So we only have 1 step, and that step is to get rid of our coefficient. Our coefficient is negative 13, so we have negative 13x. So that means we need to get rid of that whole multiplication. So we're going to divide. We're going to divide both sides by negative 13. When we do that, anything over itself is going to be 1, so that negative 13 over negative 13 is just going to be 1. So we're going to be left with 1x. And on the other side, we're going to have negative 9. So we did our multiply and divide, and so we're done. Now we're going to go ahead and let's check to see if this is right. So we're going to pick a number that's less than negative 9. So let's pick negative 10. We have negative 13 times negative 10 is less than or equal to 117. Well, a negative times a negative is a positive. So we have 130 is less than 117, and that's not true. So, we forgot to flip our sign since we divided by a negative. That's something that's very important. So we checked our answer and it was incorrect. And that's because we forgot to flip our sign when dividing by a negative. So we're just gonna go ahead and we're gonna flip our sign and we're gonna check it again. So I have negative 13 times negative 10 is greater than 117. And 130 is greater than 117, so that is correct. Now we have our number line. We're going to look for negative 9, which is right here. And we have the equal to sign underneath it, so it's going to be a closed circle. And we have x is greater than, so we're going to shade everything that's greater than it. And that's how you graph inequalities and solve them. So we solved, we checked, and then we graphed. So we got one more. And give me 1 second. Okay, So we're going to go ahead and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to use do not call me after midnight. So do not call me after midnight. We have 5/2 r plus 10 is less than 55. So we're looking for parentheses, and I don't see any. So we don't have parentheses. We're going to look for like terms. We have a variable and a constant. We cannot add those together, and we only have one term over here. So no combining variables. We're going to do move variables to one side. So we're trying to see if we have a variable on both sides. So I have an r here, but I don't have an r over here. So we're going to go ahead and say no. And then we're at add or subtract. So we're going to see if we're adding or subtracting a constant. So we are adding a constant to our r. So we got to get rid of that. So we're going to do the opposite of plus, and we're going to do minus. So we're going to subtract 10 from both sides. Our 10s cancel on that side. We're left with 5/2 r is greater than 55 minus 10 is 45. So we're going to go ahead and put a check over here. Now we got to get rid of this 5/2. So we're just going to multiply by the reciprocal. And we're going to multiply both sides by 2/5. So they're going to cancel out because it'll be 10/10 and those will cancel. And then over here, we're going to have 45 times 2/2. And it's going to be 18. So we have r is less than 18. So we're going to go check. We pick a number less than 18. I'm going to pick 2, let x equal 2. So 5 divided by 2 times 2 plus 10 is less than 55. Well, the 2's are going to cancel. We're going to be left with just 5. So 5 plus 10 is less than 55. 15 is less than 55, and that is a correct answer. Okay. And then we have our little number line, and we're looking for 18. So right here, we're going to put an open circle on 18 because you notice there's no line underneath, so it's not or equal to. And we're going to shade everything less than because we had less than. And that's how you would graph that. Okay, so if you have any questions, make sure you save them for when we're doing this in class on Friday. Then I can go ahead and answer anything that you may be confused on. Remember, there's only 3 things that are different from inequalities and equations. One is that both sides are not equal. 2, they're not interchangeable, so you can't flip it without changing its sign when it's an inequality. So if I want to say x is less than 2, I have to say 2 is greater than x if I want the 2 on the other side. And the last thing is if you multiply or divide by a negative, you must also flip your sign. So it takes a little bit getting used to. We'll show you how to graph those as well. But if you have any questions, like I said, just go ahead and save them for class on Friday. You'll have a great day.